Malcolm-Jamal Warner, dead at the age of 54 on a drowning accident while he was vacationing with his family in Costa Rica.
I am tired of running for shade. And aren't you tired of being hustled and played? And aren't we all tired of crying about how hard it is to be black in America, even if it looks like we've got it made?
Has this been difficult for you?
Yeah. Because when you watch someone who you know and love, go through.
The well-liked actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner is no longer with us, and his parting message was a warning as much as a farewell. And the actual questions are beginning to be asked now that he's gone.
Find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be
Why did no one pay attention? Why does it seem like people are silenced whenever they voice their opinions? Another catastrophe? Or was it a trend that is becoming too obvious to ignore? Let's begin. Fans are
silenced?
But freedom has its limits, so here we are, tear-streaked and salt-stained faces. Traces of trauma and pain lace our DNA like our black pride is
shocked by Malcolm-Jamal Warner's unexpected passing, while others are deeply suspicious. According to reports, the 54-year-old actor, who was well known for playing Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, drowned while on vacation in Costa Rica with his family. Authorities said the drowning off the coast of Clay's Beach in Lyman was a tragic accident brought on by strong currents. Warner was brought to the morgue after Costa Rica's Red Cross first responders discovered him without vital signs, despite the local police initially reporting that he had been rescued by beachgoers, according to the
reports that the 54-year-old was in Costa Rica on a family vacation.
Associated Press. However, not everyone agrees with the story. The circumstances, the timing, and, most unsettling of all, the message he left behind a few days before he passed away are all too unsettling to ignore. Warner wasn't only on holiday, he had a purpose, a quest to speak the truth. Sent what fans are now referring to as his disguised farewell message on the last episode of his podcast, Not All Hood, which was published just 2 days before to his death. Additionally, the topics he discussed were serious and profound. It was uncooked. It was urgent. It was also really intimate.
Can you tell me the fate of the people who consciously take the bait and embrace the very traits placed upon them by their captors, who by design are inclined to keep them believing they're second rates?
Interrupted him as soon as he told her it was called Not All Hood. That short remark threw Warner into a deep state of introspection. He came to see that the media had long promoted the hood narrative, a limited representation of black culture, while neglecting its depth, complexity, and strength. Away from the hood, he was criticizing the I system that misunderstands and takes advantage of it. According to him, American society has always been shaped by the hood side in the end. Not simply a cultural remark either. Regarding appropriation, invisibility, and stolen legacy, that is a bold reality. Hollywood has worked for decades to hide this fact. Warner didn't stop there either. He also discussed his personal evolution in terms of his thoughts on concepts, such as black greatness.
The reason for the title is combating the narrative of
historical records, altered his initial skepticism of the word due to its association with celebrity and wealth. Black excellence is black survival in and of itself, he added. Not fame, not awards, not money. Only to survive. Knowing how abruptly his own life was ended makes the line even more poignant now than it was back then. Warner seemed to have a sense that his time was running up, and that he wanted his parting speech to focus on the realities of black tenacity, adversity, and fortitude. And then he was gone in less than 48 hours after having this strong, open discussion. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was, and in many respects still is, Theodore Huxtable for an entire generation. As The Cosby Show's amiable, occasionally goofy, and consistently endearing only son, he started to appear frequently in millions of homes. A lasting impression of him as a kind, steady, and approachable person was shaped by his portrayal.
Not awards, not money.
We're not all hood. The black community is not a monolith. There's so many levels and lanes to the black community.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner behind that favorable public persona. Examining his life's scandals and tragedies did not turn up any scandal or drama that he was responsible for. Instead, it portrays a man who has subtly dealt with significant difficulties, such as a traumatic personal loss and the burdensome legacy of a show that is currently shrouded in controversy. Warner has maintained his composure, thoughtfulness, and integrity throughout it all. We witness a different side of him, someone who transformed difficult circumstances into strength and developed into a recognized and mature artist. By examining how he dealt with the consequences from the Bill Cosby incident, how he dealt with heartbreak, and how he avoided the demise that befalls many child stars. Interview 6/54/7/05 Malcolm-Jamal Warner did not start the most significant and challenging scandal in his career. He was drawn into it because of his relationship with Bill Cosby. Warner's remark demonstrated the complexity of the problem. He was torn between public pressure, personal allegiance, and the emotional burden of appearing in a program that had such cultural significance for Americans. You must know how close he was to Cosby in order to fully comprehend his response. Cosby influenced Warner's life in addition to working with him. Following a nationwide search, he selected Warner, 13, to play Theo. Cosby established the standard on the set. Warner has remarked that Cosby never behaved like a huge star, which taught him how to maintain his composure. In order to keep the show from becoming old, Cosby also offered him innovative ideas, such as staying away from fashionable jargon. Warner confirmed this years later, saying the show held up when he and his daughter viewed it. Their relationship was a combination of fatherly guidance and mentoring, which made Warner's subsequent scandal all the more difficult.
Experiences into strength and grew into a mature and respected artist.
It's difficult not to, not to feel something, have some kind of
Gentle and cautious. He was torn between wanting to honor the victims and acknowledging how difficult it was to watch someone he looked up to fall. He said, "He's one of my mentors. Just as it's painful to hear any woman talk about assault, whether true or not, it's just as painful to watch my friend and mentor go through this." He didn't stand up for Cosby, but he also didn't ignore him. He stated, "I can't defend him, but I won't throw him under the bus either." The media's handling of the subject was also attacked by Warner, who called it a circus and noted that not all of the claims were the same. He merely wanted a more deliberate discussion, not an excuse for Cosby. He had to walk a tightrope in agony, which demonstrated how emotionally taxing this chapter was for him. The personal charges were only one aspect of Malcolm-Jamal Warner's suffering throughout the Cosby affair. It was about the harm done to the legacy of The Cosby Show. He frequently said that having the show taken out of syndication was the thing that affected him the most. The Cosby Show was more than simply a job to Warner. It was a turning point in American culture that changed the country's perceptions,
which made the later scandal even more painful for Warner.
My biggest feeling is I feel sad for,
saddens me the most. In a few generations, the Huxtables will just be a fairy tale. He was also forthright about how the cancellation of the show affected him emotionally. He drew attention to the double standard, pointing out that while The Cosby Show was entirely removed, the work of filmmakers like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski continued to be seen. He acknowledged that the financial impact was genuine, stating, "It's literally taking money out of my pocket." This indicates that the consequences affected both his views and his livelihood, even though he was also frustrated with culture and representation. Warner's opinion of the controversy changed over time. Over time, they evolved. He first concurred that the legacy of the show had been damaged. However, his perspective changed after speaking with his TV sister, Keshia Knight Pulliam, who portrayed Rudy. She reminded him that the show had encouraged viewers, particularly young Black viewers, to pursue higher education and have bigger dreams. And the influence on the real world was irreversible. Her saying that really shifted my perspective, Warner subsequently stated. That was a pivotal moment. It assisted him in shifting his attention from what was lost to what the show had already accomplished for the world. He started to make the easy case that the scandal's beneficial effects could still stand alone, rather than allowing it to define the legacy. This change demonstrated Warner's capacity for introspection, personal development, and clinging to a more optimistic perspective that disentangles the art and its impact from the errors of the creator. His emotional path, which included loss, frustration, introspection, and perseverance, demonstrates a very genuine and human approach to coping with a situation that rocked the basis of his life and work. The absence of scandal in Malcolm-Jamal Warner's past is perhaps the most unexpected aspect of it, and that speaks volumes. Warner distinguishes out for taking the exact opposite stance in a world when many kid stars experience public difficulties. His stable, peaceful life wasn't a coincidence. It was the outcome of wise decisions and strict self-control. Warner made a concerted effort to distance himself from Theo Huxtable from the day The Cosby Show concluded. He also said that he didn't like the name Theo at one point. That was a professional move, not only an emotional response. He set out to demonstrate that he was more than a role from childhood. Warner took a lot of different routes. He earned a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance, became a successful singer and spoken word artist, and directed TV shows including Kenan and Kel. He even received a Grammy nomination for Best Spoken Word Poetry Album. As an actor, he didn't limit himself to jobs that were predictable or safe. He appeared in the highly acclaimed American crime story, The People vs. O.J., played dramatic roles in Suits, Major Crimes, and The Resident, and co-starred in the comedy Malcolm and Eddie. Simpson. This spectrum demonstrates that Warner's steady ascent was not coincidental. Rather, it was the consequence of persistent, hard labor to establish himself as a legitimate artist, rather than merely a former child star. What's missing from Warner's account is what makes it even more remarkable. Warner has avoided legal issues, addiction, and media controversies, in contrast to many of his peers. He attributes his career management and early installation of a strong sense of discipline to his mother, Pamela. And long before it was popular, Warner was spreading uplifting ideas as early as the 1980s. He advised young followers to avoid drugs and make wise decisions in his 1988 book, Theo and Me, Growing Up Okay. It wasn't about fame in that book. It has to do with accountability. It says a lot that there is no scandal. Warner did more than just weather kid stardom. He researched what went wrong for others and created a life that would steer clear of those same pitfalls. His artistic development also conveys a compelling tale. His TV fame was still strongly linked to his early advice book, but as he grew older, his writing became more profound and socially conscious. His 2017 short film, You Can't Hear Me, and his Grammy-nominated spoken word album, Hiding in Plain View, addressed important topics like racism, deportation, and mass incarceration. These efforts weren't superficial. His father, who forced him to study Black luminaries like Langston Hughes as a child, had influenced his political and personal awareness from an early age. Warner's transformation from child star to reflective artist is no accident. It's a perfect illustration of what happens when skill and purpose come together, and when someone chooses to develop according to their own terms, rather than what the spotlight requires. Some of the most significant events in Malcolm-Jamal Warner's life were personal in nature, in addition to the difficulties he faced professionally as a result of the Cosby incident. His private heartbreaks subtly influenced his views on privacy, popularity, and love. These were intensely emotional events that had a lasting impact on his life and perspective, rather than being public scandals. His early adulthood was marked by one of the biggest tragedies, the passing of Michelle Thomas, his ex-girlfriend and co-star on The Cosby Show, who portrayed Theo's on-screen love interest, Justine. They stayed very close even after their personal engagement ended in 1994. Thomas was given a rare and serious stomach cancer diagnosis in 1997. Warner was said to have been with her when she died in December 1998 at the age of barely 30. It was a devastating realization of mortality to lose someone so young, someone who had been in the spotlight and had a close relationship with him. And he managed it out of the spotlight with quiet elegance and thoughtful consideration. His serene, introspective, and somber outlook on life and love was probably influenced by this tragedy. Interview 1638-16 to 48 years later, Warner was involved in a very different kind of relationship that was characterized by intense public scrutiny. He had a well-publicized relationship with actress Regina King from 2011 to 2013. The two had lived together and known one another since their adolescent days of renown in the 1980s. However, their abrupt 2013 split made headlines and was widely reported. Warner abruptly requested King and her son to leave, according to tabloids. When King later implied in a 2015 interview that he had broken up with her on Valentine's Day, and then sent flowers with a note that said, "I still love you." The narrative became even more dramatic. She claimed to have thrown the flowers away. His private, quiet morning with Michelle Thomas contrasted sharply with that awful, highly public separation. The second grief appeared to push him toward a strict limit when it came to revealing his personal life, whereas the first loss enhanced his respect for genuine connection. Warner became very discreet about his relationships after the Regina King split, hardly ever talking about them in interviews or on social media. These two life events combined to teach him important lessons about the fragility and value of love, as well as the destructiveness that may result when it is transformed into a public spectacle. One loss was a personal grievance that deepened his emotional state. The other was a public ordeal that made him realize how important it was to keep his peace. These teachings influenced Warner's eventual development into a sensible, grounded guy. Now that fans are making the connections, it's hard to overlook the pattern. Tragic events appear to occur whenever a Black celebrity starts to reveal the truth, talk candidly, question the status quo, or take back control of the narrative. Like many others before him, Warner was beginning a new chapter in his life. He wasn't only thinking back on the past. The future was being reimagined by him. He had created a secure environment for discussing the complexities of Black identity through his podcast, one that was unfiltered by the slick, sterile prism of Hollywood. And even though it appeared to be a little area,
Fans are now connecting the dots, and the pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. It seems that every time a Black celebrity begins to peel back the layers,
it's subtle yet telling. Warner was questioned about his experience working with Markle on Suits in a previous podcast. At first, his response seemed diplomatic, describing her as cold and pleasant. His response, however, took a more pointed turn when he was asked if he was aware that she was Black. The great thing is that she knew. Although that appears to be a compliment at first, the subtext is where things start to get interesting. Warner wasn't giving Markle any props. He was hinting at something more profound. That although she didn't always express it, she knew. That she chose to be close to whiteness. And that perhaps, just possibly, it was how the Hollywood machine liked her. Warner did not state it directly. He was not required to. It all came down to the weight of those words, the pause, and the tone. It was a nuanced criticism that is currently being re-examined from a whole other angle. Interview 2022-2030. After all, this is the same business that helped Warner become a child star in the 1980s and then stood by as he quietly developed a successful career as a singer, campaigner, and director. Warner never belonged to the throng that was driven by the cameras and headlines. The Hollywood elite seldom acknowledged his passing, despite the fact that he worked, created, and raised conversations. There were only a few subdued headlines. No primetime tributes, no significant memorial specials, and a great deal of stillness. That quiet is deafening to a guy who influenced the childhood of an entire generation. The more Warner's last podcast episode is seen, the more it seems like a man attempting to leave a breadcrumb trail. He was discussing cultural erasure, how Black warriors battled for liberties they were never able to experience, and how the hood, in spite of its demonization, was the cradle of so much greatness in America. He was redefining success in terms of survival rather than possessions. And he's gone now. Just as those messages were beginning to gain momentum. No longer is it merely a coincidence. Warner's passing adds to a lengthy string of disasters that seems to occur at the height of the prominence of truth-tellers. After a secret battle with cancer and releasing parts that questioned whitewashed narratives, Chadwick Boseman passed away. After advocating for community investment and ownership, Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed. Dave Chappelle almost lost his job because he dared to voice his opinions and left a corrupt industry. Warner, who had at last discovered an uncensored platform, is suddenly no longer there. Interview 22, 18-22-25. It feels suspicious, but we're not claiming it was a conspiracy. Because something happens every time someone tries to reveal Hollywood's sanitized portrayal of Blackness, whether it's by highlighting the less lucrative aspects or by discussing hardship rather than achievement. And heartbreak is typically the outcome. Malcolm-Jamal Warner was worthy of more than just a press story. He was worthy of more than a passing mention on the gossip websites. He was a man whose message went against everything we've been taught to believe, and that's the only message we have left. We should listen to it now before someone else vanishes. That concludes today. I'll see you in the upcoming video. Until then, farewell.
It's now being re-examined through a whole new lens.
It was cool. We didn't really have scenes together, so I'd see her and she was really nice, really cool.